Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. In Chinese history, when it comes to the powerful eunuchs of the Ming Dynasty, several well-known names often come to mind: Wang Zhi, Liu Bei, and Wei Zhongxian. However, there was another key figure, Wang Zhi, who once enjoyed unparalleled glory and was one of the representative figures of eunuch dominance during the Ming era. Historically, he, along with the other three, has been collectively referred to as the four great eunuchs of the Ming Dynasty. Wang Zhi once headed the Western Depot, a powerful intelligence agency of the time. During the reign of Emperor Xianzhong, Zhu Jianshan, he was deeply trusted by the emperor and was treated as a close confidant. At that time, Wang Zhi wielded immense power. A single word from him could decide the fate of major state affairs. But as fate would have it, in 1483, numerous officials jointly impeached Wang Zhi, accusing him of monopolizing power and disrupting governance. Emperor Xianzong gradually lost trust in him and eventually demoted him to a position of insignificance. Thus, this once high-flying eunuch slowly faded from the stage of history. Interestingly, the other three eunuchs met rather tragic ends. Wang Zhi was killed by rebel soldiers, Liu Bei was executed, and Wei Zhongxian ultimately hanged himself. Yet, Wang Zhi's ending, as recorded in the history books, is summed up in just three understated characters, meaning, he died a good death. This naturally arouses curiosity: how did he manage to retreat unscathed from the peak of power? At this point, it's worth looking at the stories of the other three eunuchs for comparison, which helps explain why Wang Zhi appears so exceptional. First, Wang Zhi, who was active during the reign of Emperor Hongzhang. He was highly skilled at currying imperial favor and quickly won Hongzhang's trust, being appointed as the chief eunuch of the Directorate of Ceremonial. He became the real power behind the throne. However, Wang Zhi grew arrogant and overconfident. He even urged the emperor to personally lead a military expedition to Mongolia. This resulted in the infamous Tumu crisis, in which the emperor was captured, and Wang Zhi was killed in the ensuing chaos, a major blunder in Ming history. Next is Liu Bei, who was even more shrewd. He rose rapidly during the reign of Emperor Wuzong, not only controlling the Directorate of Bells and Drums but also establishing the Inner Depot. He became the regime's godfather-like figure. Liu Bei amassed vast wealth through corruption and power brokering, enjoying unmatched influence for a time. But he grew excessively greedy. Even his own allies couldn't stand it anymore. He was exposed, and Emperor Wuzong couldn't protect him. He was ultimately sentenced to death. Then there's Wei Zhongxian, a ruthless character who controlled the Eastern Depot, one of the most feared intelligence agencies of the Ming Dynasty, during the reign of Emperor Shizong. He persecuted dissidents and built up a faction of loyal followers, effectively becoming the real power in the court. At that time, many people didn't even refer to him as a eunuch anymore. They called him Lord of 9,000 Years, meaning he was just a step away from being emperor. However, Wei Zhongxian went too far. When Emperor Shizong died and Zhu Yujian ascended the throne, he immediately had Wei removed from power. Knowing he couldn't escape punishment, Wei Zhongxian hanged himself. So why was Wang Zhi able to retire safely? From historical records, it's clear that although Wang Zhi once held great power, he was not as excessively domineering or extreme as the other three. After he was impeached, Wang Zhi chose to step down without resistance. He didn't form cliques or seek personal gain, nor did he desperately cling to power. Wang Zhi understood that his moment had passed and that retreating was the wiser choice. This wisdom, knowing when to advance and when to retreat, is the real reason he was able to end his life peacefully. According to historical accounts, in 1465, the mountains of Daxia Gorge in Guangxi were shrouded in the smoke of battle. That year, the imperial court dispatched a large army to suppress the Yao ethnic uprising, and the Daxia Gorge was finally pacified. During that very war, a young child was captured and taken to the capital along with the spoils of war. After being castrated, he was sent into the imperial palace, this child would later become the famous eunuch Wang Zhi. Children like him, sent into the palace, were considered little more than symbols of military merit, sacrificial pawns in the game of power. They were referred to as gifts, but in essence, they were slaves. Life inside the palace was far from the glamorous facade of its splendid halls. For a lonely, helpless child, surviving in this vast and ruthless machinery of power required nothing but wit and endurance. It was in such an environment that Wang Zhi grew up, quietly accumulating the bargaining chips for his future. In a way, he was fortunate. He was later assigned to the Shrouded Palace, serving the emperor's favored consort, Lady Wan. Through this connection with Lady Wan, Wang Zhi caught the attention of Emperor Chenghua of the Ming Dynasty. With his intelligence and quick wit, Wang Zhi was soon transferred to the Directorate of Imperial Horses, where he gradually earned the emperor's trust. In 1476, a shocking incident shook the capital. A sorcerer named Li Zilong colluded with a eunuch named Wei Shi in a plot to assassinate the emperor. Although the embroidered uniform guard, Genghis, cracked the case in time and the emperor was unharmed. The incident left Emperor Chenghua deeply alarmed. Palace infighting, the ambitions of powerful officials, and turmoil both inside and outside the court made the emperor increasingly convinced that he needed his own eyes and ears completely under his control. Though both the Eastern Depot and the Genghis were operational, they no longer satisfied the emperor's desire to see everything. Thus, he said something to Wang Zhi that carried great weight. "I will not be kept in the dark any longer. Go out of the palace for me, and see what's really happening beyond these walls." This mission held extraordinary significance. Wang Zhi visited various parts of the capital, gathering intelligence on the movements of officials and the sentiments of the common people, compiling everything into detailed reports for the emperor. When he returned and presented his findings, Emperor Chenghua was amazed. He praised Wang Zhi's sharp judgment and meticulous thinking, calling him a born spy. And so, in 1477, a new institution that would shake the entire court was born, the Western Depot, Xichang. This newly established intelligence agency, personally led by Wang Zhi, rivaled the Eastern Depot in power. Its duties were to monitor officials and investigate cases. Wang Zhi hand-picked an elite force from the Genghis and immediately began operations. The Western Depot's swift and forceful method soon cast a shadow of fear over the capital. At the mere mention of the words, Western Depot, officials would turn pale. If Wang Zhi himself was seen on patrol, it felt like an approaching disaster. By then, Wang Zhi had become the emperor's most trusted confidant, holding a vast intelligence network. He could intervene in almost any political matter, even matters of border defense were within his influence. However, the rise of the Western Depot wasn't without consequence. To gain credit and rewards, many under Wang Zhi's command began fabricating charges, wrongfully convicting innocent people. Even casual gossip in the streets could lead to imprisonment. At the time, false accusations and miscarriages of justice became rampant, causing widespread fear among both officials and civilians. Wang Zhi became the emperor's eyes, but also the officials' nightmare. Naturally, this drew the ire of the civil officials, led by Grand Secretary Shang Lu. A group of high-ranking ministers submitted a joint memorial to impeach Wang Zhi and the Western Depot, listing no fewer than 11 serious offenses and requesting the emperor to remove and investigate him. But the emperor's response was one of fury. Can a mere palace eunuch shake the foundations of the state? Rather than punishing Wang Zhi, Emperor Chenghua reprimanded the officials instead. Of course, for the sake of appearances and to quell the storm, the emperor made a token gesture by transferring Wang Zhi back to the Directorate of Imperial Horses, signaling a temporary retreat from the spotlight. But everyone knew, it was all for show. Not long after, Wang Zhi was reinstated and returned to power with even greater authority than before. He even became involved in military affairs, overseeing the southern border defenses. Wang Zhi had truly become an all-powerful eunuch, commanding both civil and military domains. In 1479, the powerful eunuch Wang Zhi suddenly received an urgent imperial order. He was to rush to Liaodong to handle a border rebellion. Riding a fast horse and accompanied by light cavalry, he sped toward the front lines like a gust of wind. Wielding immense authority, Wang Zhi struck fear wherever he passed. Local officials, such as censors and supervisors, greeted him nervously along the roadside. No one dared show even the slightest disrespect to this close attendant of the emperor. Even border commanders who displayed the slightest discourtesy risked public punishment, at best a few lashings, and at worst, a severe public beating. The governor of Liaodong, anxious to curry favor, rode out to kneel in welcome outside the city. He offered lavish meals and generous gifts to please Wang Zhi. Even Wang Zhi's subordinates were showered with bribes, clear evidence of how vast and unchecked his power had become. In 1480, Wang Zhi launched another expedition to Liaodong and returned victorious after the Battle of Weining. Emperor Chenghua, Ming Xianzhong, rewarded him generously. However, while many praised his military achievements, a courageous inspector, Chang Zhen, stepped forward to submit a memorial to the emperor. He exposed Wang Zhi's false battle reports and revealed the truth of a defeat. Chang Zhen's memorial broke the silence, and soon multiple officials jointly submitted petitions to impeach Wang Zhi. But this wave of accusations didn't change Wang Zhi's fate. He remained untouchable and completely unscathed. Tragically, the first whistleblower, Chang Zhen, was later arrested under Wang Zhi's influence. He was demoted and exiled to a remote border region. His fate served as a dire warning to anyone else who dared to speak the truth. By that time, Wang Zhi's name had become synonymous with fear across the imperial court. But as the saying goes, the taller the tree, the more wind it catches. The higher one stands, the harder the fall. In 1482, a major incident occurred in the palace, a theft in the western inner court. The eastern depot, Dongchang, reacted swiftly and quickly apprehended the thief. The head of the eastern depot, Shang Ming, immediately reported the incident to Emperor Chenghua. The emperor was delighted. He richly rewarded Shang Ming with treasures and praised him publicly. At that moment, Shang Ming was basking in imperial favor, poised to become the new favorite. But when Wang Zhi heard the news, instead of feeling pride for the protégé he had once promoted, he was filled with rage. He thought, "You're just someone I brought up, how dare you bypass me and claim credit directly?" Enraged, Wang Zhi began plotting against Shang Ming, even considering eliminating him altogether. But Shang Ming wasn't naive, sensing Wang Zhi's hostility. He began gathering evidence of Wang Zhi's abuses of power and corruption over the years. He soon teamed up with senior official Wanan, and together they submitted the evidence to Emperor Chenghua. This exposé finally aroused the emperor's suspicion. Combined with a growing wave of court officials denouncing Wang Zhi, his standing with the emperor rapidly declined. Emperor Chenghua eventually made the decision. He abolished the western depot and curtailed Wang Zhi's power. By 1483, the moment was ripe. The officials united in a final push and, with one concerted effort, brought Wang Zhi down. The emperor ordered all his titles and salaries revoked and removed him entirely from the center of power. From that point on, Wang Zhi faded into obscurity. The once glorious grand eunuch, who had dominated the court, now lived in quiet solitude. His days of splendor were gone. His residence deserted, but he was allowed to live out his days peacefully, and in the end, died a natural death. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.